Hi, fourth and fifth grade. Welcome to This Week in Music. Today we're going to be learning about some music notes. This is a time we're going to learn about some music notes, some rhythms, some percussion with our drumsticks. We're going to learn about our artist of the month, which is Stevie Wonder. We're going to start him today. And then we are also going to do our holiday of the week, which is Hanukkah. So let's get started with that. All right, hi guys. Today for our concept of the day, we're going to be learning about some types of music notes. If you had me in October or November, this is probably a little bit of a review for you, but we could all use that review. So in music, we have different symbols that mean different things. But to start with, for standard music, there's lots of different types. This is the standard. Standard music is cut into four. This is called a time signature, and it's 4/4. So what that means is that any little chunk of music is cut into a chunk of 4 different beats every single time. If it's in 4/4, there's other types like 3/4, but we're going to focus on 4/4. So when a music note is cut into 4 chunks, or music measure, that chunk is called, like I said, a measure. And a measure of music, each time you have measured music, it's going to be filled up with 4 beats in any arrangement, in any different kind of like long or short, up to the composer and who is writing the music. We're going to learn about a couple of notes today that could go into these 4 chunks of music. So to start with, we're going to start with what's called a whole note. And a whole note, it's kind of like an O. If you can see, it just kind of looks like an O with like some thicker sides. A whole note is called a whole note because it fills up the whole measure, the whole chunk of music. So a whole note is worth 4 beats because it fills up the whole 4-beat measure. So a whole note then you hold onto for 4 beats. The way I like to clap out a whole note is I like to go 1, 2, 3, 4. Do with me. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Because if you see, I start that note with a clap, but then I hold on to it. And if I had like an instrument, I would go, or my voice even, I go, ah. That sound is continuous for all 4 of those beats, that ah. Okay? So that's a whole note. It's called a whole note because it fills up the whole measure of 4 beats. So you hold a whole note out for 4 beats. Next up, we have what is called a half note. Now, I want you to think about this in terms of like math, right? If a whole note is worth 4 beats, how many beats do you think a half note would be worth? A half note would be worth 2, because 4, half of that is 2. 2 times 2 is 4. If you cut 4 in half, if you had 4 apples, cut it in half, you'd have 2 on each side. 2. A half note is worth 2 beats. Now, it also means that it fills up half of a measure or half of a 4-beat chunk of music, which means that you could put 2 half notes into a measure. So the way I would clap out a half note is I would go 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Or if I was to do like a whole measure, I could do 1, 2, 3, 4. And the way that would sound is be like, ah, ah. If you can hear it, it's 2 beats that I'm holding out my voice for. 2 beats. If you were playing a wind instrument like a recorder, a clarinet, a trumpet, you would be able to make that sound with your instrument. But for now, I'm just using my voice. So that's a half note. It is 2 beats in a measure. The final one that we're going to learn about today, we'll learn about more, but today we're just going to focus on these 3, is this one. This one is called, a quarter note. And a quarter note is worth 1 beat. Here's how I like to remember what a quarter note is. First of all, let's take a look at a quarter note versus a half note. Look at what differences you see there. They look pretty similar. If you're thinking size, the size is the same. It might have printed differently. But a half note looks exactly the same as a quarter note, but the half note just isn't colored in. They both have the circle and the stems coming out of that circle. But the circle for the half note is not filled in, while the circle for the quarter note is. If we look at a whole note, the whole note isn't filled in either. So whole note and half note, not filled in. Quarter note, on the other hand, with that stem, is filled in completely black. A quarter note is worth 1 beat. Here's how I like to remember that a quarter note is worth 1 beat. If I think about quarters in terms of money, how many quarters go into a dollar? Let's see. 25, 50, 75, 100. There's 4 quarters in a dollar, just like there's 4 beats in a measure. So because there is 4 quarters in a dollar, there's also 4 quarter notes in a measure. Or a quarter of 4 equals 1. Because 1 out of 4, a quarter. So a quarter note is worth 1 beat. So the way I would clap out a quarter note would just be 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So very simple, very just clapping out those beats, right? That is a quarter note. Now, when we move on to our body percussion or our percussion section next, you're going to notice that you wouldn't be able to do a whole note with drumsticks or with your whatever tool that I'm having third grade use. You wouldn't be able to do this. Why? If I tap my drumstick, the sound doesn't last for 4 beats. The sound can only make one short sound. So I can't do a whole note or a half note because it can't make 2 seconds of sound. It just one single beat. I can't make a whole note and I can't make a half note with percussion. I would need a wind instrument, which means that like an instrument that you play with your mouth, like a clarinet, a trombone, a French horn, to be able to hold out that sound for that amount of time. So when we do drumming, we're going to focus a lot on quarter notes and also 8th and 16th notes, which we will learn about next week. So let's move on then to our percussion section to kind of get started figuring out how to work with these notes in these 4 beat measures of music. See you there. All right, 4th and 5th grade, let's do some drumming. So I want you to get your drumsticks out and we're gonna kind of create a space where we can do some drumming. Now in front of you, I don't really want you to do it at like a table or a desk, just because you're at home. I don't want you to bother your parents or your other siblings that might be trying to learn too, right? So we're going to make sure that we find a quiet place to do our drumming at. That might mean that maybe you are drumming on a pillow. Maybe you're drumming on your carpet. Maybe you're drumming on, I don't know, a towel. What I have in front of me, I'm at my desk right now, but I have this piece of foam right here that I'm drumming on. And I also have a towel underneath of it. So that way my sound isn't super loud. Because if you listen to this is the drumstick on just my desk. This is the drumstick on my phone. A lot more quiet. And for the purposes of us being at home, let's try to find a quiet spot to drum on. All right, go ahead and find that quiet spot. Pause video if you need to, bring me with you. And now let's get started with our drumming. We're gonna start by talking about how we hold onto our drumsticks for the purposes of my 4th and 5th graders that have not done drumming with me yet. If you had me in November or October, you probably already know this, but this is for our newbies. So I have my 2 drumsticks here. I've got my little tips on them and I've got ends on them. My drumsticks look a little bit different than yours, but I've got my drumsticks here. Here is how I hold my drumsticks. I want to leave about an inch or 2 of them at the bottom and put a fist on both of them. See how I don't have them at completely the bottom? My hand isn't all the way down here, so you can't see any of the drumstick at the end. It's got about an inch or 2 of room. Now, my grip on the drumsticks is kind of like a thumbs up. If you can see, I've got it in my hands and I've kind of got like a thumbs up going on here. My hand is kind of positioned to where my thumb isn't like a straight up thumbs up, right? My thumb is up, but it's almost like the same height as my fingers. So this is how I'm holding my drumsticks. I'm not going to squeeze them tight like this because then I can't get any bounce back when I drum. I'm going to hold on to them gently. So if you can see, it's kind of hard to show, but do you see how at the end here, you can kind of see it bouncing back at me. It gives me that ability to bounce and drum the way I want to drum. So I hold it just like this. And this is how I'm going to drum. I'm going to keep my arms not tight to my sides, kind of boxing out my elbows. And I'm going to drum like this. There's lots of different ways to hold drumsticks depending on what you're doing, what drum you are using. But for our purposes, this is how we will hold them. And you're just gonna kind of find those beats. So let's get started with that. We're gonna start with a steady beat. This is also what I like to call level 1. So a steady beat is just doing the exact same thing over and over again. So let's ready? Start with me, ready? Go. Good. My foam fell off a little bit there. So let's keep going. Ready? Go. Now, make sure that when you drum with me, you want to be able to do it at the exact same time as me. Because otherwise, if you're drumming at a different kind of speed than me, it's going to be like a da, da, but you don't want it to sound like that. You want it to sound very smooth and together. We shall be able to hear this one sound together with both of us together. Okay? Good. So, that beat that we just played, like we just talked about our music notes, is technically this right here. It's 4 quarter notes. So if I do it again, we're going 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Or 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Good. Next week we'll learn about our level 2 and our level 3, which is super fast. But today we're going to try some rhythms together. If we were in class together, I would have you guys also make up some rhythms for the class to play. Rhythm meaning like some patterns for the class to do. But because we're virtual, I might have you guys do some flip grids of that. However, let's try some rhythms with Mrs. D. So I'm going to try a rhythm that I want you to repeat after me. So I'm going to go long, long, short, 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 short. Ready? Go. Long, long, short, 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 short. Good. And that long that I'm saying is my quarter notes. So long, long, short, 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 short. Good. Try it backwards. Short, 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 long, long. Short, 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 long, long. Good. Try it on your own. Try this one. So I'm going hit, hit, tap, hit, hit, tap. Do you know what song that's from? If you already had me in class, you obviously know what song that's from. But if you haven't, that's from We Will Rock You from Queen. So that's that boom, boom, clap, boom, boom, clap, boom, boom, clap, boom, boom, clap. We'll do more with that next week. Let's try another one. Ready? Try it again. Ready? So it's going to be short, 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 long. Can you think of what that could be? Ready? Short, 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 long. Da 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 da. If you guess that it's the Mario theme song, you're right. So it's da 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 da. Try it. Ready? Da 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 da. Good. And if you kept going, you could go da 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 da. But we won't do all of that today. Good. So, a couple more. Let's try short, 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 long, long. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, hit, hit. Ready? You try. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, long, long. Good. The next thing that you're gonna do, fourth and fifth grade, is you guys are going to do what's called a drum along. So that means that after our whole video is done, our whole lesson for the day, you're gonna find the link to our song of the day in there. Not our song of the day, but our like drumming song of the day. Not Stevie Wonder. Today it's the Jonas Brothers. It's from Camp Rock. So what a drum along is you listen to the whole song one time. I want you to take the time and just kind of listen to the music, kind of hear the drumming kind of patterns that you hear in there. And then after, when you listen to it, you're gonna listen to it 2 times. The second time you listen to it, I want you to drum along to it. Kind of find that beat, kind of find the rhythm that you wanna do, and you're gonna do a drum along. I'll tell you what, there is no wrong way to do a drum along. A drum along is really based on what you're feeling from the music. And I want you to be able to feel that in the music. You can tap up here, you can drum on your area, whatever feels right to you. Sometimes I'll be going like this, just feeling the beat. Sometimes I'll be going along with what the singer is saying, so I'll be going down here and doing rhythms. It's completely up to you. I want you to experiment with the music. So I hope you guys have fun with your drum along, and let's finish up with our Stevie Wonder for the day. Hi everyone, and welcome to our holiday of the week portion of our lesson. This week we are going to be focusing on the holiday of Hanukkah. There may be quite a few of you in our school that celebrate this lovely holiday. This holiday is actually a holiday from Judaism, which means that if you are someone that is Jewish, you may celebrate Hanukkah. I'm going to tell you a little bit about Hanukkah. I'm going to show you some of the things that they kind of do, and I'll show you a Hanukkah song. So let's get started. To start, I want you guys to know that instead of being one day like Christmas is or like Thanksgiving is, Hanukkah spreads out over 8 whole days. It's like a really long celebration, which is really cool. It's an 8-day celebration that starts in December. It kind of varies on the days. It's based on like this really ancient calendar that they have that tells us what days of the year it's going to be on. But this year, Hanukkah is from December 10th to December 18th. So that's coming up about next week. So it's a holiday about rededication. If you think about rededication, what could that possibly mean? Well, I know that dedication is when I work really hard, or like if I dedicated a book to someone, it means that I'm telling you that I did this for you. Like if I said this book was written for blah, 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 I'd be dedicating the book to you. So it means rededication in the sense that Jewish religion was temporarily outlawed at one point. Instead, they were forced to celebrate and kind of worship Greek gods instead. You weren't allowed to practice being a Jewish person at that time. But then, backtrack. They were celebrated in the Jewish temple as well. So instead of celebrating like their own religion in their temple, they had to practice someone else's religion in their temple, which to me, it's that's kind of a sad thing to have to go through, right? Like if something that meant so much to you, because that's the religion that you practice, is taken away from you, that would be hard on me. So for them though, there was a really brave priest and his son, and they bravely took back this temple. And they said, no, we are going to practice our religion because our religion of Judaism means a lot to us. And so Hanukkah is an 8-day celebration to kind of remember that period when they did take back their temple and kind of say, no, we are going to celebrate our own faith and pride. So that's really awesome to me. It's also called the Festival of Lights because of the menorah, or it's also called the Hanukkah, because over the 8 nights of Hanukkah, families light each one of these candles. So you might be thinking, okay, well, there's actually 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 candles there. This candle in the middle is what's used to light each of these candles over the 8 nights. And this is called a Hanukkah or a menorah. Menorah is like the standard version of this holiday version of it. So this is a really fun celebration. They do gifts, they have yummy food. They do gifts over the span of the 8 nights rather than like one big celebration of gifts at the end. They kind of spread that out for themselves. But they also kind of play games. They do lots of fun things. One of the games that they play is called Dreidel. Mrs. DeYoung had to carve her own dreidel because she could not find one at the store, sadly. But this is a dreidel. It's kind of like if you've ever seen a spinning top. It's like a version of that, but except it's kind of hard to see on the camera, but it has Hebrew letters on it. And so you would spin the dreidel using the spinner at the top. You spin the dreidel, and then whatever it lands on, that Hebrew letter would tell you what your next direction would be. And it's kind of like a game that they would play. They'd actually play this game while they were outlawed. So while they weren't allowed to practice being Jewish, if they had guards coming by and they were sneaking, they were trying to read the Torah, which is the Jewish writing. If they had guards coming by and they knew the guards were coming, they would pretend to just play the dreidel instead. So it was kind of like a sneaky way of being able to practice the religion still, even when it was outlawed. So the dreidel is something that they play every year during Hanukkah as kind of a remembrance of that, of what they had to do to be able to still celebrate the religion. So basically, it's just like a spinning top game. Mrs. DeYoung says very, very tedious, but you would spin it. I'll pick my paper here. You spin it, and then it lands on one of these symbols, and then one of these symbols tells you what your next action would be. It's a very cool game. We're going to actually sing a song about this because dreidel is kind of one of the more fun, like children's part of Hanukkah. So let's do that. This song is called I Have a Little Dreidel. Now dreidels are usually a lot fancier than this. Mrs. DeYoung had to kind of makeshift one, but they can be made out of many materials. Mrs. DeYoung's is made out of foam. So this is the ball that it was before, and then Mrs. DeYoung carved it to look like a dreidel with 4 sides and then kind of like a tip so it can spin. And then I've got a little straw sticking out of it at the top to make my little spinner. But it just started as this foam ball. So Mrs. DeYoung's is made out of foam. But typically, a dreidel is going to be made out of like wood or clay or lots of different materials like that. Plastic, if you're getting it at like a big store like Walmart probably. But there's lots of different ways to make a dreidel. So this. All right, 5th grade, welcome to our new Artist of the Month. If you've had me in person already, you know that last month we focused on the Beatles, which is a really cool rock group from Europe, the UK. But this month, especially if you haven't been with me yet, we're going to be focusing on Stevie Wonder. And Stevie Wonder is a very special musician. He is still alive today, still alive and kicking. He's doing great. And he is actually from Michigan, from Detroit, Saginaw area. So he's very special to us Michiganders. And he's very special for another reason too. So I hope you guys enjoy this. We're going to read like 2 chapters this week. And then every day after your video, you're going to go listen to a song by him. Our song of the day today is Superstition. It's kind of, it almost has like a Halloween-y feel to it. Not really, but just like a little bit. I think I've seen it in like a Scooby-Doo movie before. You've probably heard it before in some context because it's just like a very, very popular song. So let's learn about our Artist of the Month, Stevie Wonder. Chapter 1. Who is Stevie Wonder? Or I guess the intro chapter. Steve-Lyn Judkins walked into the Motown Record Corporation in Detroit one day in the fall of 1961. He was there to audition for the studio bosses. Every day, other musicians came to Motown for the same reason. They all hoped to become stars. Stevie, as he was called, was just like them, except that he was only 11 years old, and he was blind. Stevie started off by playing the piano. Then he banged on the drums for a while. He was wearing dark sunglasses indoors, but plenty of young musicians thought wearing shades like that looked cool. And Stevie found his way around the instruments with no problem. Not everyone in the room realized that Stevie was blind. At first, Berry Gordy, who was the main man in charge of Motown, didn't think Stevie was such a big deal. Gordy had already had enough of people who could play the piano and the drums. But after playing the drums, Stevie sang for a bit. And then he played the harmonica. Gordy was impressed that not only could Stevie do so many things well, but he did them with a wide smile on his face. Stevie was clearly enjoying himself, and everyone around him was having a good time too. Gordy decided then and there that he was going to sign Stevie to a recording contract. So as we just heard, Stevie Wonder is actually a blind musician, which means that he's playing all these keys without being able to see them. So he has to just feel them with his fingers because he can't see, which is a super duper awesome feat. That was more than 50 years ago. Today, Stevie is known around the world by his stage name, Stevie Wonder. He is a groundbreaking musician who has entertained millions of fans, performed in front of world leaders, and worked hard for social change. He has earned the highest honors awarded to composers, singers, musicians, and citizens of the United States. And he has done it all with that same positive attitude and wide smile on his face that he had in the Motown studio that day in 1961. Chapter 1. Difficult beginnings. As we can see, little Stevie there struggling to see, but he's playing the drums. Music had always been a big part of Stevie Wonder's life. He was still a baby when he began pounding on bongo drums in his crib. When he was a little boy, he grabbed whatever spoons he could find in the kitchen and played on the pots and pans. When he was about 5 years old, a barber on the street gave him a harmonica, and Stevie learned how to play it. Stevie had never had any formal lessons, but he always seemed to know how to make music with any instrument that was available. Stevie was born as Steveland Hardway Judkins on May 13th, 1950 in Saginaw, Michigan. Saginaw is about 45 minutes north of us in Fenton. So it's about, if you looked at a mitten, if Fenton's here, Saginaw is like right here. His mother's name was Lula Hardway, and his father's name was Calvin Judkins. Stevie had 2 older brothers, Melton and Calvin Jr. 2 more brothers, Larry and Timmy, and a sister, Renee, were born in later years. So that was 5 brothers and sisters. That's a lot. Stevie was born about 6 weeks earlier than expected. He probably was not blind when he was born. But when babies are born too early, they usually remain in the hospital until they are strong enough to go home. The hospital puts them in an incubator, which is supposed to keep conditions for them to be healthy. Stevie was in an incubator for more than a month. So when Stevie was born, you can see this little machine. That's baby Stevie in there. He was born too early, so they put him in this big incubator machine to keep him healthy for that month while he got strong enough to be like a newborn baby, all on his own. He seemed healthy in every way, except that the doctors did notice that his eyes didn't seem to respond to movement or light. They had not developed properly. Naturally, Lula was upset at the news. She begged the doctors to do something to restore Stevie's sight, but there was nothing they could do. He was permanently blind. Stevie couldn't see, but his hearing was incredible. When he was growing up, his siblings would drop a coin on the table. "What is it, Stevie?" they would ask. "A dime," Stevie would reply correctly. They would drop another coin. "How about that one?" they would ask. "A quarter," Stevie would say. Right again. Stevie's hearing was so good that he could identify a coin simply by the sound it made. So basically, like, let's say if I had a pencil and a pen here, sorry, I don't mean to reach in front of you guys. I have a pencil here and I have a marker here. Stevie could tell by the sound of what I dropped whether that was a pencil or a marker. Just by sound, not even by like looking at it, which is crazy. That's crazy good hearing. And when you lose one of your senses, whether that is like sight or taste or hearing, usually your other senses will become a lot stronger to make up for that. So because Stevie was blind, his sense of hearing became a lot stronger. See, Stevie was so tuned into sounds that naturally he was drawn to music. It started with bongo drums in his crib. Stevie's father gave those to him. Calvin Sr. had been a pretty good musician himself, and he taught Stevie songs and encouraged his son to love for music. However, Calvin didn't have a regular job. He would sometimes leave the family for long periods of time. No one knew where he was or what he was doing. When Calvin wasn't around, he wasn't very nice to Stevie's mother. Lula thought that maybe in a bigger city, Calvin could find a job and things would be better. So when Stevie was 4 years old, the family moved about 100 miles to Detroit on the eastern edge of Michigan. So they lived in Saginaw, which, like I said, is kind of right here, almost in like that little crevice of the thumb. And then they moved all the way down here to Detroit, which is kind of almost really close to Canada. We live in Fenton, which is about right here, kind of like right in the middle there of Saginaw and Detroit. Calvin joined Lula and the kids in Detroit, but he didn't change there. He still didn't work at a regular job, and he still went away sometimes. Lula found a good job, though. Every morning she would get up before the sun rose to work at a fish market. It was hard work, but she had a plan. At the time, the family lived in an apartment that wasn't in a nice part of town. Lula wanted a better life for her kids, so she saved a little bit out of each paycheck and stuffed it under her mattress to hide it from Calvin. When she had enough money, she made the first payment on a house in a good neighborhood. She moved there with her children, leaving Calvin behind. So as you can see, there's Lula, which is Stevie's mom, stuffing a bunch of coins under the mattress that she could save up to get away from his dad, because he wasn't a very nice man. And next week, we will read about Chapter 2, A Gift for Music. So I want you to go check out Superstition. That's our first Stevie Wonder song of the week. It's a really good, it's kind of got like a funk vibe to it. I would say that Stevie Wonder is kind of like a R&B, kind of funk, kind of like mixes and matches genres based on kind of the year that we're in, kind of the vibe, the feeling that we're in at that time period. So he's very versatile as an artist. The song that we'll listen to today is very funk. You'll think very 70s, like almost disco kind of feeling. So I really hope that you enjoy it. You've probably heard it before. All right, guys, I'll see you next week.